blood and faith. That's what it always comes down to in the end. I've served the Emperor for 9 decades as a Sister Superior of the Adepta Sororitas, and I've seen enough gore and glory to fill 1,000 prayer books. But the scribes and scholars, they never get it quite right, do they? Let me tell you the truth about us Sisters of Battle. We're not just warriors. We're weapons forged in devotion's fire. From the moment they tear us from our cradles, they hammer faith into our bones and hatred into our hearts. The weak ones break. The strong become living saints. I've seen more than my share of both. You think the Space Marines are the Emperor's finest? Try watching a sister stride through a wall of promethium fire, her armor blackened but her faith untouched, gunning down heretics with a precision that would make an Astartes grunt in approval. We don't have their enhanced genetics. We have something better. We have absolute, unshakable conviction. The Ecclesiarchy feeds us the finest weapons their bloated coffers can buy. Power armor that hums with blessed machine spirits. Bolters that sing death's sweetest hymn. But it's not the ceramite that makes us deadly. It's the centuries of combat doctrine beaten into us between prayers. Every bullet is blessed. Every trigger pull a prayer. Every kill an offering to him on terror. I've lost count of the sisters I've seen fall, but their deaths only fuel our fury. Each martyr's blood that spatters my armor is a reminder of why we fight. The galaxy is rotting from within, infected with heresy, Xenos filth, and worse. We are the cauterizing flame. You want to know what makes us different from other imperial forces? We don't just believe in miracles. We make them happen. I've seen faith turn the tide of battle more times than I care to count. Sisters rising from fatal wounds, their eyes blazing with holy light, flames of pure devotion incinerating demons. The Emperor protects, but through our faith, we protect ourselves. Our training never ends. Between battles, we drill until our muscles scream, then pray until our voices crack. The weak call it zealotry. I call it necessity. In a universe drowning in darkness, absolute faith isn't just a weapon. It's the only weapon that matters. When we march to war, our hymns shake the earth. Not for show, mind you, but because each verse is a declaration of absolute purpose. The enemy hears us coming and knows their doom approaches. Our faith is stronger than their fear, our resolve harder than their defenses, our fury hotter than their final screams. Let others doubt. Let them whisper that we're fanatics, that we're too rigid, too devoted. They'll change their tune quick enough when the walls come crashing down and darkness pours in. That's when they'll pray for the sound of our boots, the thunder of our bolters, the purity of our purpose. Because that's what we are. The Emperor's fury made manifest, his will given form in ceramite and faith, and by his grace and our determination, we will burn every last enemy of humanity from this galaxy, or die in the attempt. You want to know how we came to be? Settle in, for it's a tale of corruption that would make even a hardened battle sister's stomach turn. I've studied the sealed records, the blood-stained scrolls that detail our founding. The age of apostasy, they called it. Age of madness would be more fitting. Picture the Imperium at its most bloated and corrupt, if you can imagine it being worse than it is now. The Ecclesiarchy had its talons in everything, squeezing every world until the tithes bled them dry. Oh, they called it spiritual obligation. But we all know it was pure, unvarnished greed. The High Lords of Terra, nothing but puppets dancing to the Ecclesiarchy's tune. The Ecclesiarch spoke, and trillions trembled. The Emperor's voice, they called him. Ha! I've seen the ancient parchments that detail their excesses, palaces that could house millions, built while whole worlds starved. The administratum squealed like stuck grocs as their coffers ran dry. But what could they do? The Ecclesiarchy had the Emperor's name to hide behind. But it wasn't just the pen pushers who grew restless. The Astartes, and this should tell you how bad things were, even the bloody space marines started looking sideways at Terra. The Mechanicus too, though who can tell what those red-robed lunatics are thinking behind their masks? Then the warp itself turned against us. Perhaps it was laughing at our folly. Storms unlike anything in recorded history cut worlds off from each other. Entire systems going dark, never to be heard from again. The black ships couldn't make their rounds, and you know what that means. Psychers running wild, demons manifesting in the streets, whole populations falling to madness or worse. The Fraterist Templars, Emperor, curse their memory. They were supposed to be the Ecclesiarchy's warriors. Instead, they became its butchers. I've seen the casualty reports from worlds they pacified. Makes even my hardened heart grow cold. And while we tore ourselves apart like rabid dogs, our enemies circled like vultures. The traitor legions crawled out of their hellholes in the Eye of Terror, using their foul sorceries to strike at isolated worlds. Orcs did what orcs do. But the Drukhari, spits those sadistic bastards had themselves a feast. The screams of their victims probably echoed through their twisted webway for decades. You think you know despair. You should have seen the madness that gripped humanity then. Every 2-bit preacher with a megalith-sized ego declared themselves the prophet of the end times. Billions fell to their knees, expecting the Emperor's final judgment. Others took up arms, claiming divine mandate for their own petty rebellions. But you know what's truly ironic? Out of all that corruption, all that madness and bloodshed, we were born. The Adepta Sororitas rose from those ashes like an avenging phoenix, pure, incorruptible. Everything the Ecclesiarchy wasn't. Sometimes I wonder if the Emperor planned it that way all along, to let the corruption grow so grotesque, so obvious, that none could deny the need for warriors of absolute faith and purity. Warriors like us. The histories say we were founded in the 36th millennium, but we weren't just founded, we were forged. In blood and fire and desperation. And that forge made us stronger than ceramite, harder than adamantium, more absolute than death itself. Remember that. Next time you see a battle sister march past, we weren't born from glory. We were born from humanity's darkest hour, and we damn well made sure such darkness would never return. You think you know madness? Let me tell you about the days when the galaxy truly lost its mind. Whole worlds went collectively insane. Not the usual kind of insanity, mind you. No. This was the special sort of madness that only comes from absolute certainty that you're right and everyone else is wrong. Billions of faithful flogging themselves bloody in the streets, screaming prayers to the Emperor between their own screams of agony. And if you dared suggest they might be overdoing it a touch, well, there's always room for one more on the pyre, isn't there? And then came Goge Vandire. Even now, thousands of years later, we're not supposed to speak his name without proper contempt, the man who would become the architect of the reign of blood, though man might be too generous a term. Vandire didn't climb to power. He slithered there, leaving a trail of bribes, threats, and convenient corpses in his wake. Master of the Administratum, they called him. Master of Puppets would have been more accurate. Take Paulus III, and doesn't that name just drip with historical irony? Vandire's hand-picked puppet ecclesiarch, chosen specifically for being an incompetent fool. Though I suspect even Vandire was surprised by just how incompetent the man proved to be. But that was the point, wasn't it? Set up a fool, let everyone see he's a fool, then have him declared a heretic and executed. Just like that. Clean, efficient, perfectly planned. The cardinals who elected Vandire as the new ecclesiarch, their purses were as heavy as their souls were empty. You have to appreciate the sheer, twisted genius of it, in the most bitter way possible, of course. There he was, running both the Administratum and the ecclesiarchy. The man who had spent years plotting against the church now sat on its throne. Even the chaos gods must have been taking notes. But then, he heard about us. Well, not us exactly, our predecessors. The daughters of the Emperor on San Leor. Pure, devoted, skilled in warfare, and utterly isolated from the corruption of the wider Imperium. Must have seemed like a gift from the Emperor himself to a man like Vandire. Thousands of his bootlickers waited for his arrival on San Leor. They marched into those simple farming communities, threatening death to anyone who didn't show proper devotion to their master. The servo skulls capturing every moment, broadcasting it across the galaxy, at least the parts that weren't cut off by warp storms. You know what the truly darkest joke is? Those propaganda pics still exist in our archives. I've studied them, frame by frame. You can see it in the eyes of those first daughters, the absolute certainty that they were doing the Emperor's will by welcoming this snake into their midst. The same certainty that would later. But that's another part of the story entirely. And trust me, it gets far, far worse before it gets better. Would you like to hear how Vandire convinced those pure, faithful warriors that he spoke for the Emperor himself? Picture this. Vandire arrives at their fortress convent with all his pomp and ceremony. The daughters, Emperor bless their naive hearts, they weren't impressed. Not by his titles, not by his threats, not by all his gilded glory. They were warriors of faith after all. They demanded proof that he spoke with the Emperor's authority. And this is where that bastard proved himself truly diabolical. He didn't argue, didn't threaten. He simply smiled that snake smile of his and agreed to submit himself to their test of faith. The daughters would judge his worthiness themselves. Their leader, Alicia Dominica, remember that name, she put a bolt pistol to his head. "If the Emperor protects you," she said, "then this bolt round will not harm you." You know what that magnificent bastard did? He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stood there smiling as Dominica pulled the trigger. The bolt round failed to fire. Of course it did, because he wasn't just any bureaucrat. Vandire was master of the administratum. He had access to archaeotech that could disable weapons, scramble ammunition, perform all sorts of miracles. But the daughters didn't know that. All they saw was a man, unflinching in the face of death, protected by what they believed was the Emperor's divine will. In that single moment, he had them. The daughters of the Emperor became the brides of the Emperor, Vandire's personal army, his shield, his sword, his executioners. The historical records, they don't capture the full horror of what followed. These pure, faithful warriors twisted into instruments of Vandire's madness. They became his most feared weapons, absolute in their devotion to a man they believed spoke for the Emperor himself. The same faith that made them incorruptible was used to corrupt them completely. They believed, truly, absolutely believed. Every atrocity they committed, every world they helped subjugate, every innocent they executed, they did it all believing they were serving the Emperor's will. Vandire's madness had reached new heights. The reign of blood, they called it, and Emperor's teeth, was it ever aptly named. Billions dead, entire sectors in flames. The bastard had even started executing his own brides of the Emperor for imagined slights, paranoia eating away at what was left of his sanity like a cancer. Sebastian Thor had raised his army of the faithful, the Confederation of Light. The Mechanicus had finally pulled their heads out of their blessed machines long enough to choose a side. The Astartes. Well, let's just say even the Space Marines have their limits when it comes to tolerating insanity. But none of them could reach Vandire, not while he had the brides of the Emperor protecting him. We were his shield, yet also his prisoners, though we didn't know it then. Then came Vandire's greatest mistake. A group of warriors approached Terra, not to attack, but to parley, led by the Adeptus Custodes themselves. Even in his madness, Vandire couldn't deny them entry without revealing his hand. Do you know what it means when a custodian steps beyond the imperial palace? They who guard the Emperor's own body. It's like seeing a mountain decide to take a stroll. They simply don't do it. Not unless something has gone catastrophically wrong. The custodians came with an offer to bring Alicia Dominica and her closest sisters before the Emperor himself. Vandire, the fool actually thought he could talk his way out of it, ordered Dominica not to go, but you don't refuse an invitation from the custodians, not if you truly serve the Emperor. They took her deep into the palace, past all the defenses, through doors that hadn't opened since the Horus heresy, and finally, before the Golden Throne itself. What happened in that room? Dominica never told the full tale, not to anyone. But when she emerged, Emperor's blood, she was changed. Those who saw her said her eyes blazed with the same light as his, that her armor thrummed with power no forge could explain. She returned to Vandire's chambers, her sisters in tow. The old monster was ranting about heretics and traitors, as usual. Dominica just walked right up to him. Do you know what she said? The words are carved into every sister's memory. You have committed the greatest of heresies. You have led his people away from his light. You have spat upon the teachings of the Emperor, murdered his servants, and perverted his word. The Emperor's judgment is past. Vandire, clever as he was, finally realized what was happening. But I am your master, he screamed. I am the Emperor's chosen. And Dominica, blessed, terrible Dominica, she just looked at him and said, No, you are not. One swing, that's all it took. His head rolled across the floor of his own chambers, those lying lips still trying to form words. The brides of the Emperor died with that stroke, and the Adepta Sororitas were born in blood and truth. The ecclesiarchy's reforms came after, of course. The decree passive that forbade them from keeping men under arms, which is why we exist as we do now. But that moment, that single swing of a power sword, that's when we truly became who we were meant to be. We keep Vandire's skull, you know, deep in the vaults of Terra, as a reminder. Faith without question is faith without merit. We serve the Emperor, yes, with every breath and every drop of blood. But we serve him with our minds open and our souls clean. Alicia Dominica. Every sister knows her name, every sister whispers it in prayer, but few truly understand what she became after standing before the Golden Throne. 3,000 years. Think about that for a moment. 3,000 years she led us. No rejuvenate treatments, no mechanical augmentation. Just pure, Emperor-granted purpose keeping her alive long past when any mortal should have crumbled to dust. The history books, they don't tell you about how she changed, how her eyes burned with inner fire, how her mere presence could make heretics fall to their knees, weeping blood. For 3 millennia, she was our sword, our shield, and our conscience. When worlds fell to rebellion, Dominica would arrive with her order of the Ebon Chalice. Not like some flashy Space Marine chapter master. Oh no. She'd simply walk into the rebel strongholds, alone, her armor still bearing Vandire's dried blood. Most of the time, the rebels would surrender on the spot. The ones that didn't, well, that's why we have those restricted records. They say she never slept after her audience with the Emperor. Not once in 3,000 years. Just stood vigil, watching, waiting, judging. Some sisters who served under her claimed she didn't even breathe anymore, that her armor moved with pure faith alone. The plague of unbelief, that's what finally got her. Not honestly, mind you. Heretics never fight fair. She was investigating reports of corruption in Hive Sanctus when they dropped a bloody hab block on her. Thousands of tons of rockcrete and plasteel dropped from 2 kilometers up. You know what she did? She didn't try to run, didn't try to dodge. She looked up, planted her feet, and raised her power sword in salute. Witnesses say she was singing the hymn of divine retribution, even as the building fell. It took 3 days to dig through the rubble, 3 days of non-stop work, with every sister taking shifts with excavation equipment. When we finally reached her, She was still standing, still holding that sword, still facing the enemy. The Hab block had practically atomized itself against her faith. This is all we have left of her original armor. The rest was interred with her body in the Sanctorum Imperialis itself. But this piece, if you press your ear to it at midnight, they say you can still hear her singing. But here's the part they don't teach the novices. Before she died, Dominica left us a warning. "Watch," she said. "The Emperor showed me what failure looks like. It wears a smile and speaks of faith while its hands drip with innocent blood. Never again." That's why we train as we do. Why we study not just warfare, but history, philosophy, theology. Because Dominica taught us that faith alone isn't enough. You need the wisdom to know where to point your bolter. The Astartes think they have a monopoly on tactical brilliance, but they never faced what Dominica faced. Never had to rebuild an entire military order from the ashes of betrayal. First principle, faith is the weapon, but wisdom guides the blow. Everyone thinks we're just zealots with guns, but Dominica taught us that mindless faith is what led to Vandire's corruption. Every sister learns to think, to analyze, to question, even as she believes. Take our firing protocols. 3-round bursts, always. Not because we lack ammunition. Emperor knows the ecclesiarchy keeps us well supplied. No, it's because Dominica discovered that 3 rounds represent the Holy Trinity: the Emperor, the Imperium, and humanity. Each burst is a prayer, but a precisely calculated one. In melee combat, Dominica developed what we call the litanies of targeting. Most think they're just prayers, but each verse corresponds to a specific strike pattern. "Through faith, my blade finds truth." That's a diagonal slash followed by a thrust. "His light guides my hand." Overhead strike to guard position. We can coordinate entire squad movements through hymnals. Try intercepting Vox communications when the battle plan is hidden in a prayer. Her most classified teachings, the protocols of purification. After witnessing the Emperor's truth, Dominica gained an almost supernatural ability to detect corruption. She codified it into a system so precise, it borders on mechanicus technology. Stance analysis, micro-expression reading, even the way a suspect's shadow falls, all can reveal taint to a properly trained sister. Even our armor placement follows her teachings. Each ceramite plate aligned to channel both incoming fire and the Emperor's blessing. The positioning of every seal, every purity strip, every blessed inscription, they're not just decorative. They're part of what she called the geometry of faith. Then there's the advanced doctrines, the ones we only teach to the elite. How to redirect a blessed weapon's power field through pure faith. How to synchronize an entire squad's righteous fury into a focused wave of destruction. Ways to detect void shields' harmonic frequencies through prayer resonance. Some of her later teachings, they blur the line between faith and technology in ways that make even the mechanicus nervous. There's a reason certain volumes are kept in stasis-locked vaults. The power sword techniques that can slice through reality itself. Squad formations that generate defensive fields of pure belief. Battle meditation that lets you perceive multiple time streams. But her greatest teaching: question everything, but never waver. Each sister learns to be both hammer and scalpel, both warrior and judge. We're trained to see the corruption hidden behind beautiful lies and the purity masked by ugly truths. Every year we lose sisters who can't balance it all: the faith, the fury, the discipline, the doubt. But those who survive, they become something more than human. Not transhuman like the Astartes, but something uniquely ours. Warriors who can shoot straight while analyzing theological texts, who can recite litanies while calculating orbital bombardment trajectories. The siege of the Crimson Cathedral. That's where Dominica first showed the galaxy what a fully trained sister of battle could do. It was early in our founding. Doubters still questioned whether women without Space Marine genetics could truly serve as the Emperor's warriors. The Crimson Cathedral. That's not what it was called originally, you know. It was the Cathedral of Divine Light, before the corruption took hold, before the Cardinal Gustav Melchior started his reforms. See how subtle it began? First, the Cardinal replaced the traditional imperial iconography with his own variations. Modernization, he called it. Then came the changes to the liturgy. Small things. A word changed here, a phrase altered there. By the time anyone realized what was happening, he had 10 years of influence seeping through every crack in the fortress walls. The planetary defense force were just the outer layer. Inside, he had his blessed guard, former stormtroopers who'd sworn personal loyalty to him. Behind them, his pet priests had armed the zealot masses with improvised weapons. And in the cathedral proper, that's where he kept his real weapons, demon-bound servitors and corrupted battle sisters he'd managed to turn. When Dominica arrived, do you know what she did first? She stood on that hill there, just out of range, and spent 3 days watching. No attacks, no demands for surrender, just watching. Her sisters thought she'd gone mad, but Dominica had learned patience in front of the golden throne. The spiral of divine retribution wasn't just a battle formation. It was an answer to a philosophical question. How do you cleanse that which has become utterly corrupt while preserving what must be saved? The cathedral itself was a holy place, thousands of years old. Its foundations were laid in the age of the Great Crusade. 9 squads, moving in that perfect spiral, each one named for a virtue: purity, devotion, righteousness, honor, valor, justice, mercy, wisdom, and truth. As they advanced, the pattern tightening like a holy noose, they sang different verses of the same hymn. The acoustics of the valley drove the cultists mad. Some say the emperor himself guided the echoes. Each squad's movements created gaps, apparent weaknesses in the line. But they were calculated gaps, killing zones blessed by chaplains. When the heretics attacked what they thought were vulnerabilities, they found only death. The spiral pattern itself was a prayer made manifest in blood and bolter fire. With each rotation, our sisters drew closer, their faith creating a hemisphere of pure destruction. Here's where it got interesting. The cardinal thought he was clever. He had hidden artillery pieces in the cathedral's sans statues. Dominica had anticipated this. When they opened fire, the gaps in her spiral formation allowed the shells to pass through harmlessly, while the return fire from her sisters, well, let's just say those statues needed to be replaced anyway. But the true genius? While everyone was focused on the spiral, Dominica had sent her seraphim squads through the ancient catacombs beneath the cathedral. The same tunnels used to supply the fortress became its weakness. They planted blessed charges at key structural points, not to destroy the cathedral, but to selectively collapse the corrupted sections. When Dominica finally reached the cathedral steps, the cardinal unveiled his trump card, a full company of corrupted battle sisters. He thought it would break our morale. Instead, Dominica drew her power sword and spoke just 5 words. The Emperor knows his own. The battle that followed. I've seen hardened veterans weep trying to describe it. Sister against sister, but it wasn't just combat. It was judgment. Each strike of Dominica's sword was both execution and exorcism. They say her blade left trails of pure light that burned away corruption wherever they touched. The cardinal himself? Found cowering in the bell tower, surrounded by his demonic guardians. Dominica didn't even dignify him with a battle. She simply pointed at him and spoke the prayer of unmaking, a liturgical formula she'd learned before the Golden Throne. They say he simply ceased to exist. Not killed, erased. The outer room of the cardinal's private chambers was what you'd expect from a high-ranking member of the ecclesiarchy. Gilt-edged tomes of imperial scripture, precious relics, priceless artwork, all arranged perfectly, like a theatrical set designed to fool casual inspectors. But Dominica, She wasn't fooled. She could literally smell the taint of corruption, a talent she passed down to our order that we still cultivate today. Following that scent led her to discover the hidden mechanisms in the Cardinal's private altar. 3 layers, that's what they found. 3 distinct levels of degradation, each worse than the last. The first hidden chamber was filled with political evidence, documentation of bribes, blackmail, decades of carefully orchestrated accidents that had allowed Melchior to climb the ecclesiastical ranks. Sneer's amateur stuff, really. The kind of mortal corruption we deal with every day. The second chamber, that's where they found his experiments. You see, Melchior had developed an obsession with our order's ability to channel the Emperor's power through faith. He wanted to replicate it, to mass-produce what he called artificial saints. The failed subjects were still there, in stasis tubes. Brave battle sisters he'd captured and modified. We gave them the Emperor's peace, of course. Their names are enshrined in the Cathedral's new foundations. Each year we hold a vigil in their memory, though their specific fate is kept from public records. But the third chamber, this was his true work. The entire Cardinal's quarters, when viewed from above, formed a massive summoning circle. The architecture itself was a prayer, not to the Emperor, but to something far darker. Each corridor's angle, each room's dimension, even the spacing of the windows, all designed to create what the tech priests later termed a reality inversion matrix. Each of the supporting columns contained a hidden cavity filled with sacred relics he'd corrupted. The missing sororitas weren't just victims. They were intended to be the power source for something larger. Melchior wasn't just trying to summon demons. He was attempting to create what he called a reverse astronomicon. Instead of guiding humanity through the warp, it would have acted as a beacon for something else, something that even the inquisitorial records only refer to in heavily redacted terms. This is why Dominica ordered the entire chamber complex, burned with consecrated promethium and then sealed with blessed ceramite. The only things we preserved were the Cardinal's personal journals, kept in a triple-locked stasis vault on Terra itself. Even now, only the Canonist Superior of the Order and selected Inquisitors have access to their full contents. But there was one other thing they found, something that changed how our order operates to this day. In his most personal diary, encrypted in his own blood, was evidence that Melchior wasn't working alone. He was part of a larger network, one that still exists, threading through the ecclesiarchy's highest ranks like a cancer. That's why we train as we do, why we trust no one completely, not even our own leaders, because Dominica learned that day that corruption can wear the holiest of faces. The trail from Melchior's chambers led Dominica on a crusade that would span centuries. Each corrupted cardinal, each tainted shrine world, each seemingly random heresy. They weren't random at all. They formed a pattern, one that only became visible when viewed across decades of space and time. The Hollow World's uprising, the schism of the Blessed Seal, the martyrdom of Saint Castrella, all of them connected, all part of some grand design. But whose? That's what Dominica spent 3 centuries trying to discover. It came to a head in the Lamenting Stars system, specifically on the world of Cryptus Secundus, a forge world, but one specialized in creating religious artifacts for the ecclesiarchy. Dominica had tracked a series of corrupted relics back to their source, items similar to those found in Melchior's chambers. She didn't bring an army this time. No spiral of divine retribution, no cruciform formation, just herself and 9 hand-picked sisters, one for each of the Emperor's primary aspects, just like at the Crimson Cathedral. Because by then, she'd realized something profound. She wasn't hunting a conspiracy. She was following a trail of breadcrumbs left deliberately for her to find. The Manufactory Cathedral was a masterwork of corrupt architecture, making Melchior's chambers look like a child's sketch in comparison. Every angle violated sacred geometry. Every icon was a perversion of true faith. It was designed to hurt the eyes of the pure. But Dominica, She'd learned to see past such tricks. The Lord of Change was waiting for her, of course, called itself the Architect of Infinite Heresies, a greater demon of Tzeentch who'd spent millennia setting up this exact confrontation. It actually applauded when she entered its chamber. "Sister Dominica," it said, "and imagine hearing your name spoken by something that shouldn't exist in real space. 3,247 years, 6 months, and 13 days. That's how long I've been orchestrating this meeting." The chamber itself was a trap, obviously. A 9-dimensional space folded into 3 dimensions. Every step could take you anywhere or nowhere. The very air was charged with change magic, but the Emperor, in his infinite wisdom, had taught Sister Dominica a truth about sacred geometry that even the Architect of Infinite Heresies could not fathom. See how she's standing? That's not mere confidence. It's geometric certainty. The demon had built its trap using corrupted sacred geometry, but true sacred geometry, the kind etched into every plate of Sister's power armor, transcends mere mathematics. It is the Emperor's will made manifest in perfect angles and divine lines. The battle that followed. The pick captures can't do it justice. The demon kept shifting forms, trying to find a shape that would break her faith. But with each transformation, Dominica's responses became more precise, more measured. She wasn't just fighting, she was solving an equation written in reality itself. The killing blow wasn't even particularly spectacular, just a simple thrust with her power sword, but it struck at the exact angle that completed a geometric proof 3 millennia in the making. The demon's own trap became its prison, its carefully constructed schemes collapsing in on themselves. We still study the battle cant she composed during that fight. Through the Emperor's geometry, let angles become anchors. Through faith's calculation, let transformation become truth. Through sacred mathematics, let infinity bow to purity. But here's the true horror. In its final moments, as it was being drawn back into the warp, the demon was laughing, because everything, the corrupted cardinals, the tainted relics, even its own apparent defeat, was part of an even larger scheme, one that's still unfolding. That's why we maintain our vigilance. That's why every sister learns both battle cant and geometric proofs. Because somewhere out there, the next part of the pattern is taking shape, and when it emerges, we'll be ready. You'd think a demon of the God of Change would know better than to leave us its playbook. But that's the thing about Tzeentch's servants. They're so in love with their own minds that they can't resist showing off. Even in defeat, they have to prove how clever they are. The Architect's mathematical formulae, its corrupted geometries, we studied them all. Dominica made sure every scrap of data was preserved and analysed. Not the actual corrupt knowledge, mind you. We're not heretics. But the patterns, the ways it thought, the structures it used to bend reality. Take the Plague of Whispers on Solomon's Wake. Another Lord of Change, trying to turn an entire hive city into a maze of probability. But we recognized the pattern, the 9-fold corruption spreading from holy sites, the subtle alterations to architecture. This time, we were ready. Instead of fighting the changes, we added our own. Each sister carried blessed geometrical markers, small adamantium tokens carved with true sacred geometry. As we advanced into the corrupted zones, we placed them according to Dominica's counter-formulae. Every daemon-crafted trap became an anchor point for the Emperor's reality. When their Lord of Change finally manifested, expecting to emerge into its carefully crafted realm of impossibility, it found itself in a cage of pure, unchanging truth. The geometries it had corrupted had been turned into a prison of absolute certainty. The look on its ever-changing face when it realized, well, even demons can know fear. Or the labyrinth of stolen faiths on Duriah 4. Classic Tzeentchian corruption, a cathedral whose interior spaces violated physical law. Pilgrims would walk in and emerge changed, their beliefs subtly twisted. The local inquisitor wanted to virus bomb the whole continent, but we had a better idea. We deployed in the thrice-blessed spiral, a variation on Dominica's original formation, but incorporating what we'd learned about Tzeentchian architecture. Each squad carried hymnstones tuned to frequencies we'd calculated from the architect's own formulae. As we advanced, singing battle cant precisely calculated to resonate with the corrupted geometry. The entire structure tried to change, to adapt, to transform into something even more impossible. But that's exactly what we wanted. We'd learned that you can't force Tzeentchian corruption to become pure, but you can trick it into changing so much that it has no choice but to cycle back to its original uncorrupted state. 3 days of continuous prayer cant. Hundreds of calculations performed in the heat of battle. Sisters maintaining perfect geometric formations while reality itself twisted around them. But when it was done, the cathedral had changed itself pure. Since then, we've refined the techniques. Each order militant maintains a sealed vault of counter formulae. Every sister learns to recognize the 9 principal patterns of Tzeentchian corruption. Our armor's sacred geometries are specifically designed to create zones of mathematical truth that even warpcraft can't distort. But here's what keeps the demon things awake at night. We're still learning, still adapting. Every time they try their schemes, we add their failures to our calculations. The Emperor's truth doesn't need to change. It just needs warriors stubborn enough to enforce it. We have started incorporating these principles into our witch hunts. Most think witch hunting is all fire and fury. Just find someone who can do impossible things and burn them. That's amateur work. After studying Tzeentchian corruption, we learned that true witch hunting is more like solving a mathematical riddle, where reality itself has gone wrong. Every sister's armor contains geometric cognitors. Not tech exactly, more like mathematics made manifest through faith. They detect minute distortions in reality's fabric. A psyker might be able to hide their powers, but they can't hide the damage they do to the universe's sacred geometry. Here's a standard Imperial sanctioned psyker. Notice how their power creates regular, controlled distortions, like ripples in a pond. Now, take a rogue psyker, see how the patterns fragment, how they violate the Emperor's mathematical constants. And here's what Tzeentchian corruption looks like. The geometry doesn't just bend, it actively tries to rewrite itself. We've developed specific hunt patterns based on these principles. The pentagonal purification, 5 sisters moving in precisely calculated angles, each one's faith geometry reinforcing the others. Witches can sense us coming, of course, but that's part of the plan. Their attempts to escape actually help us triangulate their position. Take this case from Hive Tertius. Witch was hiding in the underhive, thought she could use the chaotic architecture to mask her presence. But chaos isn't the same as chaos. Every broken angle, every collapsed structure, every seemingly random pattern, they all still follow the Emperor's underlying mathematics, even if you can't see it at first. We deployed in the threefold vector formation, another lesson learned from the architect. 3 squads, each moving along pure geometric lines. The witch tried to bend reality to escape, but with each distortion, she actually helped us complete our computational prayer matrix. By trying to break reality's laws, she only proved them. Modern witch hunting equipment combines these principles. Our armor's blessed geometries don't just protect us, they act as living calculation engines. Every step we take is both a prayer and a mathematical proof. When we corner a witch, we're not just trapping their body, we're proving through faith and geometry that their powers cannot exist in the Emperor's ordered universe. But the real art, it's in the subtle cases, latent psychers, hidden taint, sleeping corruption. That's where Dominica's insights truly shine. We can detect potential witch taint before it even manifests by analyzing violations of sacred mathematical constants. The slightest deviation in the angle of a shadow, the microscopic warping of blessed acoustics. Listen. That's the sound of reality's geometry being processed through faith algorithms. Each sister becomes a living sensor array, able to detect mathematical heresies that even the most sophisticated mechanicus auspex might miss. Of course, once we find them, that's when the traditional methods still prove most effective. All the sophisticated mathematics in the galaxy can't beat a well-placed bolt round or a cleansing flame, but knowing exactly where to shoot, exactly how the witch will try to escape, exactly how their powers will fail them. Grim satisfaction, that's the true art of modern witch hunting. Would you like a practical demonstration? We have a contained area where we train novices in detection techniques. Most outsiders think we just grab any faithful girl and hand her a bolter. If only it were that simple. You're looking at the survivors. For every novice you see down there, 3 others have already failed. Some broke under the psychological strain. Others couldn't grasp the sacred geometries. A few learned the equations too well, if you take my meaning. See that grid pattern on the floor? Each tile is inscribed with microscopic prayers, mathematical formulae disguised as holy scripture. The novices aren't just learning to walk in formation. They're learning to feel the Emperor's underlying mathematics in every step. Watch this first-year group. They're learning the primer of phenomenological purity, the simplest of our sacred equations. Every angle must be perfect, every movement precisely calculated. If a novice is off by even a fraction of a degree, see that? The floor's blessing matrices detected the impurity in her geometry. She'll be doing penitent calculations until midnight now. Seems harsh? Try making that mistake when reality itself is unraveling around you. These third years are practicing the hexagrammic hypothesis, learning to detect and classify different types of mathematical corruption. We use sanctified servitors programmed with various geometric violations. The novices have to identify the pattern and apply the correct counter formula before the violation spreads. Listen to their prayer cant. It's not just hymns, it's mathematical proofs set to sacred meter. Each verse contains encoded tactical data. Each chorus is a complete geometric theorem. By the time they graduate, they'll be able to perform complex mathematical operations purely through battle cant. This was yesterday's witch hunting practical. We introduced a controlled reality distortion into the chamber. Nothing dangerous, just enough to simulate psyker activity. The novices had to triangulate the source using only their faith geometry training. The veteran sisters watching the feed thought it would take them at least an hour. This group solved it in 15 minutes. See how they instinctively formed the pentagonal purification? No orders given, no tactical coordination, pure geometric intuition. Of course, not all the training is mathematical. A sister must be equally skilled with bolt and flame as she is with theorem and proof. But even here, the sacred geometry applies. Watch. Every 3-round burst forms a perfect triangle of impacts. The spread pattern itself is a prayer made ballistic. By the time they receive their actual weapons, trigger pull and tactical mathematics are inseparable concepts. But the hardest lesson points to a sealed door marked with warning runes. That's where we teach them about failure, about what happens when the geometry breaks down. Every novice must face simulated warp corruption, must feel reality's mathematics start to unravel. Some don't come out quite whole. Today's session... perfect. You're about to witness the 7th trial of geometric faith. 20 novices will attempt it. If we're lucky, half will pass. Begin training protocol 7 Alpha 0. See how the chamber floor shifts. Blessed machinery whirring as tiles realign themselves into complex patterns. Now watch carefully. They enter in perfect formation, each step precisely measured. White robes, unadorned. They haven't earned their armor yet. But look at their eyes. That's what we search for. That peculiar mix of faith and mathematical certainty. Initiates assume the stance of calculated devotion. Notice how they're arranged? It's the Fibonacci spiral of faith, but with a trap built in. The pattern looks perfect, But it's actually Novus Catarina. Your angle is 0.3 degrees off. You've created a geometric weakness. In the field, that's enough for a witch to exploit. 5 hours of computational penance. Initiates reality corruption simulation engaging. Maintain geometric integrity. Look carefully. Do you see how the air seems to ripple with mathematical wrongness? The chamber's blessed machines have begun projecting controlled geometric distortions. This is where it gets interesting. The distortions aren't just random. They're taken from actual combat records. That particular violation pattern? Recorded during the Purge of Sacristan's Hope. A Zinchian sorcerer tried to unmake a cathedral's geometry. Several novices are beginning to sweat, their formations wavering. How disappointing. Hold the line. Feel the Emperor's truth in every angle. The mathematics of reality cannot be broken, only temporarily distorted. Listen to that harmonization. Each verse reinforces the geometric reality around them. They're not just resisting the corruption, they're actively pushing it back through pure mathematical faith. Increment difficulty to level theta. This is where we separate potential Celestians from regular battle sisters. Watch Novice Helena there. See how she's actually calculating new counterformulae on the fly? That's rare. Most just try to endure, but she's... Medical team to training chamber. Prepare the usual rites of mathematical reconstruction. We lose 1 or 2 that way in every batch. Their minds try to process too many dimensional variables at once. Some recover, some don't. All serve the Emperor in their own way. 15 made it through. Better than average, actually. Now comes the hardest part. They have to document every geometric violation they experienced and provide the correct counter formula, under time pressure, while maintaining perfect prayer stance. Meet our most exceptional novice, Celestine. No relation to the living saint, though some whisper otherwise. We found her in a schola on Ophelia 7, solving complex theological equations before she could walk. But it's what she discovered during last month's trials that boggles the mind. Here she is during the standard geometrical purity test. Normally, novices must solve 9-dimensional faith equations while maintaining perfect combat stance. Celestine completed the standard test in 3 minutes. Then she did something unprecedented. Instead of standing down, she began drawing new geometric patterns in the blessed air. At first, we thought she was having a breakdown. You know how some novices' minds snap under the mathematical strain. But then, just watch her movements. Each gesture precise, each step calculated. She wasn't just solving equations, she was writing new ones. The duty sister almost shut down the chamber, but I ordered them to let her continue. Call it intuition, or perhaps the Emperor's guidance. When we tested her theorem in controlled conditions, the results were astonishing. 40% increase in witch hunting efficiency, 30% reduction in geometric bleed during warp transit, and most incredibly, a completely new method for detecting Zinchian corruption before it manifests. Of course, such gift comes with complications. The Inquisition took immediate interest. 3 different ordos sent representatives within days of her discovery. And then there were the dreams. She started seeing geometric patterns in her sleep. Not corruption, nothing heretical, but mathematical truths that shouldn't be accessible to the human mind. Started talking about the Golden Throne's own geometry. Some of her insights had to be sealed away. Too dangerous, too pure, too perfect. You understand? Now she's under constant observation. Every calculation, every geometric insight, carefully monitored and analyzed. The Ordo Hereticus has a permanent observer assigned to her training. Even the Grey Knights sent a representative, though they won't admit why. We've had to design completely new protocols just for her. Standard geometric training wasn't enough. She'd solved all our existing theoretical frameworks by her 3rd week. Now she spends her time developing new battle formations, improving our witch hunting algorithms, strengthening our mathematical defenses against warp corruption. The burden weighs on her, of course. Imagine being 16 standard years old and having both the Inquisition and the Ecclesiarchy watching your every equation. But her faith remains geometrically perfect. She should be in the theorem chamber now, working on her latest project. Something about using sacred geometry to enhance bolter penetration against demon-possessed targets. The first real test of Celestine's theories came during the Hexton Hive Uprising. Standard witch coven infiltration, or so we thought. 300 sisters deployed in traditional purification patterns. Then, our geometric auspex started showing readings that defied standard theorems. Using classical doctrine, we would have formed the septimal rotation, 7 squads moving in blessed synchronicity. But Celestine's octagonal postulate suggested something new. By adding an 8th point to our formation, we created what she called a geometric resonance cascade. The Witch Coven had twisted the hive's geometry, turning straight corridors into Mobius loops. Veterans were getting dizzy just looking at it. But with the new formations, we turned their own spatial distortions into weapons. Every time they tried to bend reality, our 8-point formation would, snap it back. But not just to normal. The geometric rebound would catch the witches in their own warped spaces. That was just the beginning. The Inquisition authorized limited deployment of her theorems against more dangerous threats. The demon incursion on Sanctus Primus, the Thousand Suns assault on Virgil's wake. Each time, her calculations proved devastatingly effective. Her geometry allowed us to predict exactly where their sorcerous portals would manifest. Not just predict, dictate. We could actually force them to appear where we wanted by creating calculated areas of geometric stability. Lost a lot of good sisters perfecting that technique. Turns out reality doesn't like being told what to do, even with perfect mathematical proofs. But now we can trap even the most powerful sorcerers in matrices of pure, calculated faith. Look at the numbers. Before Celestine's theories, 60% casualty rate in major witch hunting operations. After implementation, down to 20%. For demon engagements, 40% reduction in reality bleed. Even our basic bolter penetration against warp entities improved by 35% once we applied her ballistic geometries. Her newest implementation, the Mobius maneuver, allows a squad to exist in slightly different geometric states simultaneously, means we can shoot a demon from angles that don't technically exist. Of course, there are costs. Sisters have to train extensively to handle the geometric stress. Some experience temporary reality dissociation. Others report seeing the Emperor's mathematical truths in their dreams. A few have had to be retired after their minds couldn't handle the dimensional calculations. But the results? We've had to update the litanies of accuracy. The old prayers didn't have enough geometric variables to handle the new targeting solutions. Let me show you the complete combat footage from Hexton. It provides a much clearer picture of how events unfolded. Hexton Hive, 6 months ago. 3 million inhabitants, 16 levels, and somewhere inside, a coven of 13 witches who'd learned things they shouldn't. You will see how Celestine's theories changed everything we thought we knew about witch hunting. Initial deployment, standard formation, 300 sisters split into traditional 7-point hunting groups. Look at these support columns. In normal space, they're straight. But the witches had changed them. See how they spiral in directions that don't exist? Classic witch sign. But what we didn't realize was that they weren't just corrupting the geometry. They were solving equations we didn't even know existed. 300 hours first engagement. Squad Purity encounters spatial distortion in Hab Block 17. Watch their standard response. See? Traditional doctrine says form the septimal rotation. Establish reality anchor points. Advance under covering fire. 2 sisters lost in the first 30 seconds. Their bodies just folded away into angles that shouldn't exist. But then, watch what happens when the new protocols activate. Squad harmony, implementing Celestine's octagonal postulate. See how they're moving? Not just in formation, but in mathematical counterpoint to the twisted space. Each sister becomes a point in a geometric proof that reality cannot ignore. Listen to their battle cant. It's not just prayer anymore, it's calculated sonic geometry. Each word precisely chosen to reinforce local space-time. The witches tried to counter by adding new dimensional warps, but that only made our equations stronger. Level by level, we tightened the rope. Every time they twisted space, we solved it. Every impossible angle they created became a trap. By the 9th hour, watch this. Squad Redemption, led by Sister Superior Vasquez. They're not just fighting the witches, they're fighting reality itself. But with Celestine's theorems, they're actually using the corrupted geometry against its creators. See that formation? We call it the Emperor's Fractal. Each sister moves in perfect harmony with the others, creating a kind of geometric resonance. The more the witches tried to distort space, the more our formations turned those distortions into weapons. Here's where it all comes together. 1500 hours, main coven chamber. 13 witches, reality bent into a knot around them, thinking they're safe in their geometric bubble. Each step precisely calculated, each bolt round fired at perfect angles. The witches tried to escape through their own dimensional warps, but our geometry was better, pure. Final tally, 17 sisters lost, but that's compared to the 100+ we would have lost using old doctrine. And the hive. Sacred geometrical integrity for the first time in its history. Some say you can still hear echoes of our battle cant in its deepest levels, the mathematics of faith permanently etched into its structure. The galaxy grows darker. New threats emerge. The enemies of mankind multiply. But with each challenge, we adapt. We are the Adepta Sororitas. We are the Emperor's daughters, his warriors, his mathematicians of faith. And as long as there are angles to measure and heretics to burn, we will continue our sacred calculations. The Emperor protects. Now, if you'll excuse me, it seems we have reports of geometric anomalies in the Underhive. Time to solve some new equations.